After last episode, I got a text from a good friend of mine, Corey from DSA, who kind of reached out to remind me when we were doing our call to action on the last episode. We mentioned like a number of things that people can do to kind of get in the game and help out with things, but we really missed a pretty big one. And Corey reached out to kind of remind me of that. And I really honestly, for one, she's 100% right. And for two, I don't think I can paraphrase any better. I'm just going to read the text that she sent.
I'm a little offended because we never fuck up, but
yeah, we are known for our perfect
for perfection. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So Corey has found a way to improve on perfection, obviously.
Okay. All right. We're listening, Corey.
I guess I'll listen.
So she says, "Hey, great episodes lately." Thanks, Corey. But there's more. She says, "One note on your call to action in the last episode, the most important thing, organize in all caps. Get involved with an organization or an affinity group or a small group of people who act together on issues. You guys sort of touched on actions that people can do, but it bears saying this explicitly is that the central thing we must do is connect with our communities in sustainable ways. Capital is organized. The police are organized. They starve us and they divide us, so we are not united. Organizing in our workplaces and in our communities is how we sustain and grow our movements in between these periods of spontaneous uprising."
Well, she did it, folks. She improved. She's totally right, though. And I think I remember we were sort of reaching around for a call to action. But
yeah, we were.
There are really amazing groups fighting back. And I don't think we named any of the ones that are organizing. So, Corey, thank you so much for that.
Yeah, and like super succinct messaging. Love it. Copy paste into show notes, and we will tell you how to organize in just a moment.
After this great song that we start all of our shows with.
Voices, the things they said. Voices, some from those dead. All the voices heard. Voices, things we say. Voices. All the voices heard.
Hello, everyone. You have Kempa.
And Skylar.
And Shannon.
And no Flo today. Flo is on a much-needed vacation after months and months of fighting to
get that vacation.
Defund the cops in our town.
Yeah. Well, in addition to the other 99 things that Flo is doing at all times. So
in addition to her day job, right?
Right. Exactly.
It's like she said on Saturday, "I'm not going to make it to November if I don't take a break." And I was like, that is like the truest thing I've ever heard. Like, 'cause she's just always going.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Flo and I were on a panel recently, and one of the people asked, how do you manage your time? And I think the question was initially pointed at Flo, and I was waiting for her to try and bullshit through it, but she didn't. She's like, "Oh no, I'm no good at that. I have no answers." But we have a special guest today, and it's Autumn Gonzalez of NorCal Resist. We've been dying to have somebody from NorCal Resist on for a long time. We think you do amazing work. So thanks so much for coming on today, Autumn. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess today we're going to be talking about some of the more specific really tangible work that you do, which is get people out of jail. But we'll get to that in a minute, because something like that recently happened here in Sacramento, and there are fights over this that we want to get into. But I thought it would be really good to first just get to know you and NorCal Resist, and let listeners know what NorCal Resist is. When did it begin, and what are you all about?
Sure. The group started a little after it became clear Trump was going to be elected. And a group of folks just started having conversations about, like, what's that going to look like?
I'm sorry to interrupt. When was that for you? Because for a lot of people, it was not clear that Trump was going to be elected until election night.
I'd say it was maybe a month or two before, like people
Wow.
started chatting, and then I was a doubter for sure. I didn't think he was going to get elected. Even the day I was like, is this really happening? But yeah, there were some people who definitely had better foresight than me, who started this conversation, and there was a lot of labor folks, and we just kind of came together at a table right after the election. We actually sat down in person and we're like, so what's this going to look like? And we kind of realized the first attacks we were going to see would be attacks on immigrant communities. So, I mean, a lot of the people at the table to begin with, we were from immigrant families. We organize immigrant workers in our day jobs. Like, we are involved in those communities on the day to day. But I think we were right about that. And that was the first big ugly thing that happened, like the Muslim ban and that sort of stuff. So the first big project we took on was creating an ICE hotline here for the region. And that hotline is still in existence. We don't house it anymore. It's housed at a local nonprofit, but getting that together and getting the word out about that, and then doing a lot of know your rights trainings for communities so that they understood, like, you know, if ICE comes to your door, you don't need to open it. They almost never have a warrant, that kind of stuff. And then just from there, you know, as people started to trust us and know who we were, we found other needs. And one of the big needs was obviously having legal support and assistance. And then we had that fight about the city funding some of that legal help. Closing the detention center that Scott Jones was making money off of at the Sacramento County Jail.
Now, this was an undocumented detention center?
Yeah, so basically Scott Jones was leasing beds to ICE. So there were a number of people in the jail they have out in Elk Grove, Consumnes, that were the beds are leased nightly to ICE. But the Board of Supervisors voted to end that contract, which is great. And now the only detention center we have here in Northern California is Yuba. So yeah, so those were kind of some of the first fights we had. And then obviously families started reaching out to us, not just for legal help, but also for help paying for these outrageous bonds. So we've always been like super into fundraising just because this stuff is so expensive. And we created this ICE bond fund that it's supposed to be a revolving fund, but ICE is so slow. Even the first bonds we posted like several years ago, we still haven't gotten them back. So
really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We know people who've been in detention for 4 years and longer. So it's a really slow, horrible process. So that's a lot of the stuff we do. We help folks with their legal cases. If they can't find an attorney, we help them with pro se assistance, which basically means doing the paperwork yourself. And we do a few other things like day labor outreach and stuff like that, just to make sure we're hitting as many folks as we can. And then of course, during the pandemic, the big focus we've had is we have an undocumented worker and family fund. So those families aren't eligible for unemployment, right? They're just left out in the cold, like with no resources to go to. And the first workers that started coming to us were hotel workers, union workers here in town, who just all of a sudden, like, there's no work for them and they have no income. They don't know how they're going to pay their mortgage or their rent. So we started cutting checks, and we cut checks till we were down to like $1,000 in the bank, $250 in the bank, but we were lucky to find some grant money to support that program to keep doing that. And then the community has been awesome. Like, literally hundreds of people donated their stimulus checks to that. So it wouldn't have happened if people hadn't done that, which was
That's really incredible.
yeah.
I mean, you're naming off so many different things. You're feeling so many different needs that it's hard to even, it's hard to fathom just how much you've grown in under 4 years, or what, every facet now that you're, helping to fill. Can I ask, and also Shannon and Skylar, feel free to take the conversation in different directions, but my initial response when you discuss what's facing, our undocumented neighbors and people who are really dealing with the brunt of the xenophobia and racism that Trump is fomenting, I think a lot about how the issues that our undocumented community in California is facing are not covered nearly enough in California media. Why would you say that is? Also, tell me if you agree or disagree.
Oh, I definitely agree. And I don't know why that is. I mean, I think maybe it's just such a community in the shadows that folks can easily forget that they're out there and they're struggling. But it's certainly frustrating, and it's something we've definitely noticed. And even when we were trying to, we still are trying to fundraise for like the Undocu Fund, just trying to get media interested in this really important story about a bunch of families who are going to get no help at all and who are going to be facing eviction really, really soon. Like, there's just not a lot of interest in it, which is really disappointing.
So who is in NorCal Resist? How many are you, and kind of what's the structure there?
I mean, it probably changes on any given day. I'd say there's like a core group of like maybe 30 to 40 people who do the bulk of the work, but we have a lot of people who, donate, maybe on a monthly basis, or maybe when they can, or who come out occasionally to an event or to a fundraiser or something like that. So our structure it's pretty, I mean, I think that because the group kind of started with a team of organizers who are kind of more about like movement and getting things done rather than a lot of process, we've always been kind of fluid in our processes, which, has its down and its upsides. So we're pretty informal about stuff. If somebody has an idea and it sounds like a good idea and everybody's down to support it, we just like move with it. So
I understood NorCal Resist to be an organization that worked, that centered their work around like immigration defense, and also you mentioned supporting undocumented families during the pandemic. But as the uprising has continued in the wake of George Floyd's killing, certainly now, after Jacob Blake was shot, we have started to hear NorCal.
I think we lost her.
Yeah, we lost her.
We definitely lost her.
She's gonna have to start that question over. All right.
Yeah,
you froze.
Yeah, can you start the question over?
Am I on the right internet? Okay. Yeah, I can start it over.
That was a great first take, though.
So I have understood NorCal Resist to be an organization that works closely on immigration defense and on providing emergency aid to undocumented families during the pandemic. But after George Floyd was killed, and certainly now after Jacob Blake was shot, I've heard NorCal Defense brought up many, many, many times as an organization that supports folks who are out publicly demonstrating against killer cops. So I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit maybe about how that transition happened. It seems like a natural fit, but I'd like to sort of hear the story around that. And then also maybe just like what that looks like for all of you.
Yeah, sure. So it kind of goes back to the very beginning of when we started the org. We had this like 8 points of, I think they were called points of unity or something. And it was racial justice and environmental justice and all these different topics that everyone at the table really cared about. It's just the first thing we chose to work on was this immigration justice issue because we saw that was going to be like immediately necessary. But it was never our intention to become like an immigration organization. It's just that the relationships we built in the community and the trust that we have in the community have led us to build out that work because we know where there's gaps in, there's not other organizations locally doing a lot of this stuff. Like we're the only organization in town that really houses asylum seekers, for instance. So there's just like, there were needs and we're like, yeah, that fits into our, overall philosophy and goals of organizing. So we'll go ahead and do it. But we've always been, vocally anti-fascist and in support of folks who are out, protesting against police brutality and these other issues that impact everyone in the community. We've just always felt like if there's already organizations that are taking the lead on a certain issue, especially, if it's an issue that mainly impacts Black folks, well, yeah, we should follow the lead of Black-led organizations and find our role as allies rather than trying to like be out front on that. So that's kind of how that's evolved. And then when we formalized our ICE bond, we were like, well, it'd be good to have this for protests as well, because we've had direct action conversations and we've had folks do direct action. We've had people be arrested at our actions, and we didn't really have a mechanism for dealing with bail should bail occur. So we decided let's just kind of make this one thing. That way, if we call an action, we are able to protect our folks. Like, of course, we're going to offer this if we all, at all can to the rest of the community organizations that are doing work that we're in solidarity with. So it was a good fit for us just because we already have, now we're pretty experienced at posting bond and bail, and it just made sense for us to fill that role since nobody else in town is.
Can you talk a little bit about like the amount of money you have to post for bonds or bail? It's nothing to sneeze
astronomical,
at, right?
yeah.
It's bananas.
And
Yeah.
so let's go back to early June. The folks that you were helping get out during the early George Floyd protests. Can you walk us through how much you had to cobble together, and how does one organization do that?
Well, I think we ended up paying $200,000 in bail during the George Floyd uprising total. So that was a lot. We never dealt in that much money before, and it was kind of scary. I think it threw the jail for a loop, and I think it threw the DA for a loop that activists were able to come together and do that. We're part of the National Bail Fund Network, which is an abolitionist network of bail funds, community bail funds around the country. So they've been super as far as providing us technical advice and support. Sometimes if we don't have enough money to post a bail or a bond, they'll find another community or like a bail fund in another city that has like some extra funds sitting around, and they'll be like, hey, can you guys work together and get that posted? So we have MOUs signed with different organizations, and they owe us money, we owe them money. So we all kind of work together that way. But yeah, during the George Floyd uprising, we spent a lot of money. We also raised a lot of money. I think people were just at that moment, especially if they couldn't be out in the streets, they were looking for a way to support the movement, and that the bail funds, for whatever reason, caught fire at that moment. And most of the bail funds saw like a pretty significant amount of donations, and some used all the money and some didn't. But here, unfortunately, we had to use a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was blown away when I heard how
That-
much you spent. Yeah.
Back in June, I went to the jail with Kellen from NorCal Resist to bail a couple of people out. And when we got there, you can't go in to do it like normally because COVID is in place. So they want you to do it online, but they had disabled the part of the website that allows you to do that online. And so we just spent like an hour or two just going back and forth and getting the runaround from the people at the jail itself and like trying to unsuccessfully to do it online. I just wanted to ask, have they like fixed that, or is it still like a huge headache trying to pay bail?
It's still a huge headache. The online portion is still not working, but this morning we posted a $20,000 bail for a protester who was arrested this weekend, I think on Saturday. And it took like 40 minutes. So it was not too bad.
Yeah.
Whereas at ICE, like if you get out of there in 3 to 4 hours, you're lucky. So
Yeah. I was just curious to see, because it seemed when we were down there to me like it was they were intentionally making it difficult because they don't want people to do what you guys are doing. But it sounds like you guys have sort of figured out a plan to get around some of that.
Well, there's no question in my mind that they were doing that to you with that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, and every time they come up with different excuses. And we went down on Saturday. I think the folks were arrested on Saturday night, and we went down like 2 a.m. because it said that they could post. They had $1,000 bonds. So I'm like, okay, we can do that. That's easy. We get down there, and they're like, no, they're being processed. You can't see them. I'm an attorney, so I have a bar card. Like I can say, let me go back and talk to this person. I'm going to represent them. But they wouldn't let me because they were just trying to be difficult. And they're like, oh, they're going to be out in 2 to 3 hours. And the next day that nobody was out, and nobody knew why. It's just hassle. It's pretty hassle.
So let's start talking about this past weekend. Well, I guess let's give a little context first. A little over a week ago in Kenosha, Wisconsin, we know that a young man, 29-year-old named Jacob Blake, unarmed black man in Kenosha, was shot multiple times in the back at close range by Kenosha PD as he was trying to get into his vehicle where his 3 sons were sitting. He survived, but he is paralyzed from the waist down. But there have been a resurgence of demonstrations throughout the country since this happened. We also know that, we talked about this last episode, a few days after this incident, a 17-year-old from Antioch, Illinois, went up to Kenosha and ended up shooting 3 demonstrators, killing 2 of them. And there have been even more protests since then. Not just, around the Midwest. Up in Portland, there have been some very intense ones. And then, of course, some sort of, white nationalist Trump supporters came into Portland, and that actually resulted in the death of one of the white nationalists over the weekend. Here in Sacramento, we've actually had at least 3 nights, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, of some pretty hefty demonstrations. After Thursday night, and I'm sorry, I'm just running through this, guys. I just wanted to get through the storyline quickly. Thursday night, there were 2 demonstrations, one earlier, one later. And our local politicians made a big note to try and speak out against the later one, even before it even happened, claiming it was violent. That one, some folks ended up targeting Anne Marie Schubert, the district attorney who assassinated Stephon Clark's character. They broke some glass in her building, as well as at the Sacramento County Sheriff's building, the sheriff being Scott Jones. They did some glass breaking and graffiti there. He came out beating his chest in a press conference Friday and long story short, there have been a couple more nights of demonstrations with a few arrests. How many were there in total, Autumn?
I think it was 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had trouble finding an exact number, but I knew it was more than 3 and possibly less than 10. I hope there's not anybody in jail right now we don't know about. But so this all happened. But something interesting happened Saturday night after the demonstration that I'm hoping you could speak to. 3 people in particular were arrested. Can you sort of give us some background on that, as much as you're able to?
Yeah, my understanding, and I haven't spoken to these folks, so this is just hearsay and rumor mill, I guess. But my understanding was they were on their way to the protests, and on their way, they were picked up by, I think the Citrus Heights police were out and about, and then Sac County PD or Sacramento City PD. They were picked up by them. That's
Okay.
my understanding.
I saw. Okay. So I was looking at their records in the jail system. One of them, the young man, was arrested by Sac PD. The other one, the woman, was arrested by Citrus Heights PD, which was surprising to me because I thought they were together. Perhaps not. But and then there was a third person that was the person who also got out today. Those were the last 3 who were kind of still in jail. But the 2 who are left, do you know much about could you talk a little bit about why they're still in jail?
Yeah, so they're being held on they're being held without possibility of bail right now on a public safety hold. I think it's Penal Code 1257 or something like that.
It's a 1275.
1275, yeah, there you go. Which basically says they're a danger, so they can't come. And I guess a judge signed off on that, that they were not eligible to be let go on bail with everybody else.
What? Okay. That's cool.
We had the same thing happen. I don't know if y'all saw the Freedom Mall 14 who got arrested at the governor's mansion or his house in Fair Oaks. Yeah. That happened that same day. They were held on that public safety hold as well. They were arrested by CHP. So we thought, oh, CHP is really angry about this. None of the attorneys had ever seen that used before on protesters. We were all like, oh, usually protesters are released on their own cognizance after they, book them and process them. So they'll get out soon. Like they were just sitting chained to something, like no big deal. But they used that hold to keep them there. And I don't think, at some point they finally dropped it and we got them out like in the middle of the night for like a measly $2,000 bail. So
that was the first night with those 14 at the governor's mansion.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you just said that attorneys, I guess public defenders, folks who defend people have never seen this used before by, what is this, by district attorneys? Is it law enforcement? Who's imposing this?
It was CHP in that instance who had asked the judge for the hold. So we usually work with NLG Sacramento, and a lot of them are public defenders, and some of them are
National Lawyers Guild.
Yeah, some of them are in private practice doing criminal defense. I'm a labor attorney, so I don't know anything about this stuff. Yeah, so we were like, what's going on? And they're like, this is like really weird. This is not a usual thing. But just having conversations with other bail funds around the country and kind of getting the lay of the land, it sounds like DAs and sheriff's departments and law enforcement departments are reaching out and finding these creative ways to punish protesters who they know are probably a lot of the charges will ultimately be dismissed because they're silly and there's no reason to spend money pursuing them, but they want to, inflict some harm somehow, and this is a way for them to do that.
Yeah. Draconian is the word I would use for this, right? It's
Yeah, totally.
These are profound measures for people who are doing really just like, I mean, if they're just demonstrating, literally.
Well, and like the charges are kind of like really pretty vague, right? Like what is getting charged with rioting mean? Like what were you doing exactly?
Yeah, it seems like a pretty whack like way to pick someone up and hold them anyway. It's like I mean, I think Skylar's question is important. And then how do we get from a person who is like demonstrating to, and like in the case of the 14 folks at the governor's mansion who were like handcuffed to a fucking gate, and then you've got from the story that we are hearing, these folks are on their way to a demonstration. Like, how do you get from either being handcuffed to a gate or on your way to demonstrate to a fucking you're a public safety hazard suddenly? I mean, I feel like every cop in Sacramento should be held on 1275.
I do want to verify here. These two arrests, the two folks that are still in jail, one of them was at 12:11 a.m. on Sunday. So I believe this was after the demonstration.
So that's after, yeah.
I think the other one was after as well.
I mean, like, I'm glad we have the info, but the question still remains, right? Like what, because if they're breaking like a curfew, which we don't have a curfew in place, but like that like is potentially a reason to hold someone. It's a bullshit reason to hold someone, but it's a, I guess a legal fucking reason to hold someone. But like in this case, what do we actually, this is just like the unsurprising abuse of power that we see over and over and over again, by cops.
Yeah.
But also very specifically fucking Scott Jones.
Well, they were pulling this same shit back in June, right? I mean, Autumn, I think maybe you can confirm, but I think a lot of the protesters who were arrested were like pulled over around where there were like protests, there's things happening, and the cops just decided that they were like in on the protests or on their way there, like involved somehow without really any system of proof or like any kind of real reason to think that. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I mean, there were a ton of arrests during the George Floyd uprising, and we were just kind of overwhelmed with the number of people contacting us and family members, and like, how are we going to like pay all these? But a lot of people, they dismissed they didn't press charges because it was just nonsense. They were just picking people up to get them off the street and to prove their point. And I think that will
our money being
that. Yeah.
Our money being used real well. I think
cool. Snatching up kids. Great.
Something that I think about, you mentioned, Autumn, a little bit ago, talking about how you had posted bail for one of the folks that was arrested this weekend, and it took about 40 minutes. And that, I think you said it was like a piece of cake. It was like super easy. And I think like, as a direct service provider myself, I think like 40 minutes for a seasoned direct service provider like yourself is a piece of cake. But that's because you understand the system. You understand inside and out how to get a person, how to post that bail, how to, pick that person up, how to get all the paperwork filled out. If NorCal Resist did not exist in our community, we would have people who were like literally stuck in our jail system with family members attempting to, probably, first of all, without the money to get them out. And if they did have the money, they would be in this situation where they're trying to figure out how the fuck to get them out. Like, so 40 minutes to you or to NorCal Resist is potentially an entire day of a loved one, a friend or family member still sitting in the jail.
At least, right?
At minimum. I just think that I think it's important for us to recognize just how incredible this work is and what a service is being provided to people who are willing to get out there and fight for justice. Like I'm blown away by how incredible it is that you're just out there, like take 40 minutes at 2 a.m. and we're gonna get them out of jail.
No, I mean, you're really right. One of the things we saw happen during the George Floyd protests was folks were approached by bail bonds in the jail who like gave them these BS stories about how the process works, and people signed these awful contracts saying they owe, like a ton of money to these bail bonds companies that didn't get them out. So there's a lot of really unscrupulous players in this area, and that's also one of the reasons why we've inserted ourselves into it, just to educate like the wider community on how this system works and how really ugly it is, and how it preys on like the most vulnerable people in our communities, whether it's ICE bail or prison jail bail.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A friend of the show and civil rights attorney, Tiffany Reselmoyer, recently said she was just sort of commenting on the fact that you can end up in a cage for 72 hours because a cop accuses you of a crime.
Right.
Like, isn't that, it's absurd. But that is like, not only is it not absurd to the larger population, but like that's just how things work, and that's just public safety.
Yeah. I mean, I think when people have a closer brush with it, which is also another way that dealing with protest bond is kind of educational to everybody, because you may not have any people, like I have family members who spent time in prison, so I kind of have a decent understanding of that. But if I didn't, I might not have ever thought about it or know. But if you have a friend get arrested at a protest and you're like freaking out about what you guys are going to do to get your friend out, it becomes a real educational experience really quick for people. And I think it's important that we harness the energy around this to, push for change on this, because it's so wrong.
Yeah.
Well, what does that look like? We're advocating for change. What do we do?
I mean, ending cash bail.
Yeah, I was going to ask about
detention.
that.
Yeah.
Didn't we vote to end cash? Like, I obviously wasn't paying close enough attention, but I thought we voted to end cash bail already.
I think that a proposition passed, and then the bail bonds industry challenged it in court, and I think that's still where that is. I know a lot. Not being super educated on criminal issues. I know a lot of defense folks are not super happy with that bill anyways, or that proposition anyways, and they want real, actual, like, end of pretrial detention.
Yeah, so it succeeded, but it's not in action yet. I think it's supposed to start at the beginning of next year or something like that. In the meantime, the bail industry, having all the fucking money that they have, and I'm sure CCPOA, the California Correctional Peace Officers Association, basically the lobbyists for the biggest monsters in the state, probably threw some money down on this too. They have succeeded in getting a ballot measure onto the California November ballots that would overturn the votes that succeeded in ending bail bonds. So the fight's not over. I mean, it should be beatable, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make a quick point, and Skylar, you touched on it briefly, but I just wanted to talk about here are the charges that the two folks that are currently in jail are facing right now. One of them, he is facing rioting, right? That's one of his alleged crimes. The other one being resisting, because of course they always
it's such fucking dog shit. They can charge you with resisting. That's like, on its face, that's obviously fucking stupid.
The funniest is they can charge you with that when you've done no other
right
crime.
Exactly.
You're resisting arrest. It's like, it's so circular. It's
Right.
absurd.
It just means that the cops can roll you up whenever they want for no reason. That's all
he was
that
resisting.
means.
It's like, I didn't do anything.
Exactly.
So anyway, but yeah, there is legal precedent there, and yes, they can legally do that, even though it's fucking absurd. So those are his two. He had a $50,000 bail, which was doable for you at NorCal Resist. The other one, also, he was a medic, to my understanding.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah, at these demonstrations. So he's basically just trying to take care of people, and these are the people they target. He's the second medic, I believe, that law enforcement in our region is targeted. And then the other person, she's been brought in on let me look at the charges. One, carrying a concealed dirk or dagger, which is basically like a knife that doesn't fold. And it's concealed, so it's like in a bag or your pocket or something. So another bullshit one. And then what is this? I guess that's it. That's the only one I see on here.
A concealed dirk?
Yeah,
that's the whole charge.
Dirk. Well, she got resisting as well, of course.
Oh, fucking yeah! Tack that one on. Why not?
Yeah. Oh, the other one I really like. They took her in on the felony charge of laser pen pointing the eyes of some cops. A felony. The poor little piggy's eyeballs are.
Man, wait till the cops find out about fucking eyelids. They're great. You can just close them. Solves the whole fucking problem.
Yeah. So that's what she got brought in on. She was set at 10,000. Two perfectly doable things for a powerhouse like NorCal Resist to help folks get back out into their homes, but the arresting officers asked this judge, I forget her name, I think it's Catherine something, to do this 1275 hold. And 1275 holds are often used, if they think you're a danger, but also often used if they think it's more often used if they think that the money that you're using for your bail was was procured illegally. So they do it for drug offenders or for sex work offenders. And again, seeing something like this used against demonstrators, which, by the way, I think it's absurd to use it in those situations as well. I fucking 100% believe that. But in this situation, it's as out there to me that they
because the contention is that NorCal Resist is obtaining its money through illicit means, right?
Yeah. Unless their argument is that they just pose a danger to society, which I guess maybe because there is this sort of heightened rhetoric by both sides of the capitalist class right now against Antifa demonstrators, right? So not just, the Republicans saying that they're terrorists, but also Democrats like Joe Biden coming out today and saying this is violence, So yeah, I mean, if it's one of those two, but I think in either direction, it's just kind of patently ridiculous, no?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we asked the attorney, does she need our books, or is there anything we can provide? And they're like, no, this is ridiculous. So we're not worried about that. I mean, our books are open, they're public record. Yeah, but this is something that other bond funds around the country, other community bond funds have seen and have had to open their books for a judge to fight back against these kind of charges. So
what a fucking headache. This whole entire thing is such a headache, and I don't know. I think we've already said it, but thanks to you and everybody you work with for being willing to just take all of this on.
Yeah.
And do it, because it really we've outlined already, it's next to impossible, I think, for just a layperson to come in off the street and just have to deal with this stuff. And the service that you're providing is crucial.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think all of us in the activist community, I think, owe you guys a lot of thanks.
Totally.
Thanks. Well, I mean, the money that is in the fund is from activists. A lot of people will donate like $5, $20. It adds up, and you know, we can do big things with it. So
I wanted to ask you, and I know that we're kind of running low on time. You're obviously, for many reasons, are an incredibly busy woman, and we got to let you go soon. Before we do that, though, I wanted to touch on something we just kind of spoke about. Biden came up, and I wanted to ask you, because it seems like so if you guys started as sort of a way to like help immigrants navigate the legal system, and like it's a lot of it is donation and volunteer based. Obviously, when Trump is coming into power, there's a ton of movement for that, and people are fired up about that, ready to throw down, right? So I just wanted to ask you what you think the future looks like should Biden win the election. And all of these people, like, because obviously, like the immigration camps didn't get built under Trump; those predate Trump. Like, this isn't a problem that started with Trump. It's not a problem that will end with Trump. Are you at all worried, should Biden win, that the people who are fired up because Trump is in power will not be as fired up if Biden takes over? And will that affect, or do you think that there's a chance that affects people's willingness to donate or volunteer?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think it's something a lot of folks on the left have been talking about, just because a lot of new people have come into the movement and been activated by Trump and by the things that have happened during these 4 years. But yeah, like the modern detention system, ICE detention system we have now, it was basically built during the Clinton era, and it's just kind of grown and grown and grown. And the monster grows and neither party does anything about it. So we don't expect a lot of things will change at the margins, but as far as conditions for working people and immigrants, we're not really expecting them to get amazingly better. And yeah, we are concerned that we'll see a drop in donations from folks who maybe haven't feel like, oh, my job is done. Now we have a Democrat back in the White House. But I think that's part of the organizing work we have to do. We always have seen our organizing work as kind of two pronged, like the one prong being like the direct organizing that we do in communities to build a mass movement, and then organizing our coworkers and our families and our middle class neighbors, and educating those folks on the realities of what's happening to people who are outside of their bubble, and how how oftentimes things are really just not that different under a Democrat, and we have to look at the root causes of a lot of the problems, which go way beyond the two-party system.
Yeah. I guess, as is well known, and forgive me if you already said that, but President Obama deported more people than any other president ever. So the fight continues no matter which of the two capitalist parties are in the White House. Autumn, can I ask you, I think a lot of people are going to be like, obviously we are just all in awe of the work that you do and everything that you're pulling together. People that are inspired by this today, how can they be a part of this? How can they join NorCal Resist? How do they join this fight, even now, and as Skylar was asking, beyond?
Yeah, so we're on every social media channel. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, so find us there. Our website's norcalresist.org. There's a tab on there to get on our email list, to sign up as a volunteer, and to make a donation. So you can do any or all of those things, and we'd love to. We are taking new folks all the time because we believe in building a movement. So new folks are always welcome.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you do incredible stuff, and it feels like you make magic happen. So it means so much to have you on today.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like to say while we have you before we release you back out into the wild?
We're planning some big things around ICE bails, bonds. So that information will be on all our social media channels. So look out for that.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much, Autumn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we
Yeah.
hope to have you on again soon.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes.
Cool.
Okay. Well, Autumn is absolutely a fantastic human being. Yeah, we were like super lucky to get her. Like that was super last minute too. We hit her up like a couple hours ago.
Hours
like,
before.
Can you figure out how to use this computer program and come on our show in like a couple hours? So yeah,
Phenomenal.
thank you, Autumn, for coming out. We also wanted to say that there's in fact a demonstration at the jail, which at 3 p.m. on Tuesday, which is the day you are listening to this. So if you get this early enough and are free, head on down and help support at 3 p.m. outside the jail. They're demonstrating on behalf of the people who are still locked up.
On the 1275, yeah.
Yeah.
They're scheduled to face the judge at 3 p.m. Tuesday, so I suppose we'll have more on that story as it comes. This is a funny episode because there's just a lot of stuff happening in real time for us, but we're just doing the best we can to cover this.
Speaking of stuff happening in real time, Dave, you're all fired up about our Attorney General, and I'm going to just take a stab at his name. I'm going to say Javier Becerra. We're going to hope for the best with that. We'll.
Can we ask the resident Latina if that was correct?
Javier.
Okay, good.
Becerra.
All right. I'll try to do that every time I say
I don't
his
know.
name.
That seems a little suspect, but we'll go forward with that. Anyway, Dave, why is the Attorney General? Why does he have you fired up? What is happening with this? What do we need to know about?
So, little background here. Today being the day we are recording, August 31st. It is the final day to pass bills through the legislature in California. And when that happens, the nights go really late and everyone's scrambling to get their bills passed, and they won't present it to the floor if they know they don't have, 40 votes or 20 votes or whatever, 21, 41, at whatever side of the legislature they're at. It's a total night of madness. So all of these bills are trying to get passed right now. One of them being a very weird one that came out of nowhere, I think just a couple weeks ago. It's by the Attorney General. Like an assembly member, of course, had to present it, right? But it was basically done on behalf of the Attorney General, Becerra. And it does I was talking to a friend about this bill earlier who is very steeped in state politics, and he called this one a Frankenweenie bill. In the regard that there's multiple things happening at once and none of them really make sense together.
Right.
So basically,
the shittiest way to try and push bills through.
Yeah. And then you look at the bill, you look at the different things, and you're like, how are any of these fucking things related?
Yeah.
So, and the B wrote a pretty good sort of scathing piece. Their editorial board, credit where it's due, against it.
Speaking of weenies,
here, yeah. Speaking of a Frankenweenie. Deal. So the three things that this bill is trying to do. One is it's trying to centralize suing the drug companies for the opioid crisis. So it will disallow local cities and counties and stuff to sue the companies selling opioids and say okay, now only the state can do it. Which in some contexts, fine, once you have enough precedent set, but it's why do this so fast? Why do this in this regard? None of it really makes sense. And I lost a friend to the opioid crisis. That shit's close to me, but why you, Becerra? The second thing it does is it increases the power with regards to increases the power of the Attorney General with regards to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Again, Why?
Yeah.
I don't know if is he going to try to arrest some fish? I don't know.
I have to imagine that's not it, Dave.
No? Okay.
I would think there's some maybe a little bit more to it than that.
Okay. Well, coyotes are coming over state lines. That could be it.
That could be it.
What?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably it.
Arrest
Yeah.
a few of
The
them.
thing.
Yeah. So again, why? And like he was being sort of grilled by legislators the last few days, and he didn't really give generally just like satisfactory answers to their very normal questions, you know. Skinner,
Yeah, even in this article, even our state senator Jim Nielsen, who's famous for being a giant wiener, even he is scandalized by this and does not understand why the opening up of power over fish and game or fish and wildlife or whatever.
yeah. So wieners and non-wieners alike, because also Skinner was just like, listen, sometimes some municipalities might have to sue the fucking opioid pharmaceuticals, you know,
Right.
and he didn't have a good answer to that. So it's really roundly, people are like, what is this about? And then the third one, which is very galling, is he wants to add 16 staff positions to the Attorney General's office. And the one thing that makes that very galling is he is also opposed to Assembly Bill 1506. Now, that one would allow district attorneys and peace officer departments to ask the Attorney General to conduct independent investigations into police shootings. Sort of a no-brainer, right?
Right.
But he opposes that bill because he's like, we don't have the bandwidth for that. I'm a busy guy. It's, you know, I'm the Attorney General.
But he's trying to get more.
Well, what does he want all the people for?
Staff?
What's he trying to get the extra staff in for?
Well, that's what they're saying. The irony that he's just like doing this bill where he's trying to do all these new extra things and with this new staff, and he's trying to kill AB 1506 because he's like, oh, we can't investigate police shootings. That's a lot.
Would this take, so if with AB 1506, does this take that, is this a thing that would take that responsibility out of the hands of somebody like an Anne Marie Schubert and kick it further up the chain to where like it's somebody who may not have taken as much money from police unions and whatnot who is investigating it?
I mean, honestly, it reads like it just gives them the option to kick the can up to the Attorney General. And in that case too, it's like, first of all, you know, we know our state district attorneys love to let killer cops go free.
Right.
As we saw with locally here with Anne Marie Schubert, and the stuff on Clark's killers. But also, I mean, really what I think it is he's afraid of the police unions, because everyone's afraid of the police unions. So if you're an elected, you know they have a lot of money, and you know that you don't want to be on their bad side. So he's thinking like, you know, he wants to be governor someday. He's got some high hopes out there, right? And he does not want to end up in situations where it's between the people of California that are sick of police killing, you know, black men, and the police lobby group that is very much not sick of that happening, and defends them every time that happens, right?
Sure.
And so he just doesn't want to be caught between a rock and a hard place. But he's just like, oh, well, we don't have bandwidth. But meanwhile, he's doing this other bill where he's like, oh, no, we want to expand all of our bandwidth with regards to fish and wildlife. And also, we want to sue the opioid pharmaceuticals. And yeah, we want 16 more staffers to do that. So anyway, he's being a dick.
Right. Now, you mentioned earlier, though, that he is actually in favor of another bill that's being voted on tonight, Senate Bill 731.
Yeah, so
there's another
again,
one that we should know about, hopefully by the time, like soonish, because they're voting on that tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another one, credit where it's due. This is one that would, and he said a couple months ago that he would support, if California put something like this into place, it would decertify corrupt cops, basically cops that get fired basically for bad behavior. The way it works right now is similar to,
The
how would you
mafia.
put it? It's similar to, well, I guess like, who does something like that? There's basically 45 states have something in place where it's like, if you get fired for being a corrupt cop in one part of the state, you can't get a job somewhere else. 5 states do not have that, and one of them is California.
Sweet.
Apparently. Yeah.
Great.
And
Glad to be
apparently
holding
this is
out
like
on
a
that
very
one.
controversial bill. This bill was
Right.
almost killed a few days ago.
It's the most common sense fucking thing I've ever heard of. Like, yeah, dude, if there's like a cop that shows a fucking violent history, he shouldn't be a cop anymore. How fucking hard is that?
It just kind of tells you where Democrats are in this state, and they're scared. They're just scared of the police union. A lot of these bills, I was talking to a friend about this. They basically, you have a lot of Democrats that are just scared of the police unions, and they don't want to vote for it unless they know that there are votes for it, or they're not going to vote for it until they know that there's a, in the assembly, a 41st vote or a 21st vote in the Senate. Because they're just, they play it safe. They just want to sit pretty in their little seat, and they want to do what the other folks are doing.
I don't even understand. I got to say, like, to Flo's point from last episode, if you're in the police union, I don't know why you would not want this bill. Like, it seems like getting rid of cops who are like violent psychopaths helps the cops. Like, in a system, especially in a scenario like the one we're in, where like the entire country is rising up against the police force being like united at like behind like brutal killer cops. Why wouldn't you want to like get those guys out? Why wouldn't you kick them out? It seems like it makes your job 1,000 times easier. Why like stick to your guns so hard on like keeping these guys set up with a badge and a gun? I do not understand it.
It's a super weird, like, I mean, I don't have I don't have a fucking answer to that question, but the thing that I have that comes to mind frequently in terms of cops and how they continue to get away with this, with killing people and with being horrible, is this weird like fraternity that exists. And it starts with police unions, right? That there is some sort of like that, like back the blue bullshit that like you can do no wrong because we're in this, like, I guess I was gonna say dudes club. There are women who are cops. They are no better than the men who are cops. But there's something about this like club where like you can do whatever the fuck you want. You can be a horrible person. You can kill people. And you are still going to have all of the protections that anyone else would. Like, I don't understand.
Shannon, what you're describing is organized crime.
I see.
It's almost like they thrive on that, and that's exactly what they want to be doing, and that
it's almost as if there's like one version of the law that they like quote unquote enforce on us, but then there's like this other like sort of a deal, like an unspoken deal where they don't actually have to abide by it.
Right. And that they support each other through that because they see themselves when they see their friends commit these heinous fucking violations.
Right. Who will stand up for me when I brutally execute an unarmed black man if I don't stand up for my brothers in blue who are doing the same thing?
So you really just have to like make sure that the protections exist for you. It's
Right.
really, it's all about themselves.
Self-preservation. Because what if you have a bad day and like some unarmed black person who wasn't committing a crime winds up dead? What are you supposed to do then? Who will stand for you?
Call on your brothers.
Yeah, you need that union, that fraternal brotherhood of fucking cops.
Like we can be super dry about it, but it's
yeah, I mean,
as we do.
Yeah. Just what about good apples, right? Are there any good apples? Because what I saw in West Sac last year, when the new police chief who came in because of all of the spat of horrible things that West Sac PD had been doing up until 2012, this guy came in to clean it up, and then he got pushed out because he actually wanted to reform the police department.
It seems like the good apples would have like been interested in helping him to clean up the parts of the department that need to get cleaned.
Yeah. It seems like there aren't many good apples, I guess, if I were to speak to that.
If your definition of a good apple is somebody who isn't complicit and isn't an accomplice to the crimes of his coworkers, then yeah, I don't know. I would love to meet a good apple. I've never met one.
Maybe we should follow this down this path. All right. So if they end up extricating all the good apples from the barrel, and it's all bad apples, right?
Sure.
So all of these cops, I don't know, what would we say about them?
Well, to follow this to its natural conclusion, the rest of that phrase is one bad apple spoils the whole bunch.
Interesting.
Doesn't say anything about good apples, really.
Yeah. It's almost like all of these cops are bad apples.
Yeah, yeah.
They are the bads.
Yeah. ACABA.
Well, guys, speaking of crime, I've been unemployed for a very long time, and my finances are in such a place that crime may be something I have to consider here. I mean, I figure if everybody else is already doing it, why not just kind of jump in with that? But until then, until I do turn to a life of crime to finance my lifestyle, what I'm going to do, what I have been doing, is trawling the internet in search of the most perfect takes. Usually, I accomplish this by tromping wildly through Twitter, swinging my arms about, trying to just grab on as I go to all the perfect takes. But that's a long and arduous process, and I was wondering if either of you guys has like kind of a more simple way that I could just get to a constant stream of perfect takes without having to flail around on Twitter.
Let me throw this idea out there.
Yeah, I was feeling like you had something.
just I'm ruminating here.
I saw it in your eyes.
Yeah, I got some synapses firing.
Right. That's science.
That is science. First of all, I'm sorry.
Our resident scientist has ruled
in favor. So they're first of all, I'm sorry to hear about what you're going through. And
yeah, same.
Thanks, much guys. As I don't condone violence, I understand how one could resort to activity deemed illegal in our capitalist system because we have cops that really are here to enforce property over lives. So I mean it fits into that whole sort of universe. Anyway, I really hope that you find a way so that you don't have to do things out of necessity. But I will say, you will never be short on perfect takes if
That's
you
what I wanted to
follow
hear.
down this path. And if you can pay your rent in perfect takes, I think I have the perfect place for you.
All right. Let me ask my landlord about that.
Okay, yeah. Check in, because some are actually doing perfect take vouchers.
I'm gonna ask mine too.
Yeah. But it's called voicesrivercity.com. It's been around for about 3 years.
Skylar's writing it down right now.
We have a history of arts and news coverage. We have truth to power commentary over the years. We have the Sac Follows the Money project, which has been just an absolute joy to do over the years, to show how much money Darrell Steinberg and the rest of these local politicians take in from developers and really these really asshole moneyed folks, and from the cops. We've got more of that coming down in the future too. Like I said, the current iteration is our podcast. That's been a joy to do. And I mean, we are up on episode 87. It just every day it just surprises me kind of how far we've come with this. So I'm very happy with the direction that we've all gone with the podcast. And then we've got some more community essays coming up. We've got some more news coming up. We've got more Follows the Money project coming up. Why don't I say on social what we're doing? We have Twitter at Voices River City.
It's a good idea, Dave. Please
Thank
proceed.
Facebook, Voices River City. On Instagram, it's at Voices River City. Skylar runs that, and you will never fail to laugh at whatever he ends up pulling from there.
That's true.
We have a Patreon, patreon.com/Voices River City. We are so close to our 100th patron.
That is really cool.
Yeah, we've got 98 patrons right now. And so please help us jump up to that next level.
I will personally write a limerick for our 100th patron. That is my pledge to you.
Wow, breaking news.
I will write a limerick for the 99th just so we can get to the 100th.
I got nothing.
Yeah. But I'm really hoping we can get to 100 in the next couple days. And here's a little incentive for that. We do have a couple of patron-only episodes so far. Both of them have been by my two lovely co-hosts who are here tonight. Shannon did an amazing one most recently on the Golden State Killer. Skylar did a fantastic one, sort of just a missive on Democrats. That was very cathartic. And I'm doing one on the Abraham Lincoln Brigade in the next few days. And this
is different than the Lincoln Project.
No,
very
different.
Not the same deal. Yeah.
No, the Lincoln Project definitely gets the wall. In the game. It's a joke, everyone. It's a comedy satire. They definitely get the wall in the game, though. So the Abraham Lincoln Brigade, it was a bunch of communists and socialists between the two world wars that saw the rise of fascism in Spain. And they saw that Hitler and Mussolini in Italy were helping fund the fascist Franco gain power in Spain. So they basically, against the capitalist United States government's wishes, they snuck out to Spain and fought against the fascists. And I think it really speaks to our time today. I think it speaks to what leftism is really about. And so I will spend this special episode talking about these 3,000 Americans that basically snuck out there and risked their lives, and many of them died. And they fought Franco, hand to hand with, obviously the fascists out there. So keep an eye out for that. Is there anything else? I mean, yeah, we already talked about becoming a patron.
If we wanted to hear a little bit more from you personally, Kempa, where might we find you on Twitter?
Where white me?
Yeah, well said.
Thank you.
Well, you'll find white me on Twitter at Kempa, YUKNOWKEMPA.
You can find me and my crimes at Guillotine for You. That's Guillotine, the number 4 YOU. This is Shannon's frozen right now. This is the
That's
best.
the
screen.
perfect
Yeah, I'm
frozen
actually
face.
here. Let me get this real quick.
Damn it.
Oh, damn it. She woke
she's
up.
back.
I don't understand what's happening with my internet.
You had an awesome frozen face. Though.
Yeah, I almost
Was it like
screenshotted
this?
it, but I yeah, pretty much.
You were like kind of like squinting and glaring at us.
All right, Shannon, do your thing. Do your Twitter thing.
Oh, I am at Shan ND Stevens. And
then
Flo is at Flojaune, FLOJAUNE.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
And then NorCal Resist is on Twitter at Nor Resist. So NORRESIST. That's Nor
And
Resist. Give them a follow.
they're doing amazing work consistently. Yeah. Who's got Flo's piece on the sign off?
Oh, I'll do it.
Okay.
I want to say before we sign off, friend of the show, Scott Jones, sent everyone a mailer.
Oh, yeah, I got that.
Some of you may have received this mailer, and I think there are a number of things that we can do with it, and I wouldn't want anyone to like maybe glue pictures of hogs
And then mail them back.
and mail them back.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really irresponsible idea, and I hope nobody does that.
Don't do that. Don't paste pictures of hogs onto the sheriff's department windows.
Yeah, or like shitty
don't.
balls.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah, don't do any of that.
You wouldn't. I wouldn't want to see that happen. So
Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure that like we were clear on sort of where we stand with that, because I know people are going to be like, thinking.
Also, on that
ways.
mailer, like somebody needs to help Sheriff Jones understand how to use a crowbar, because this guy's just got like the curvy end of a crowbar like stuck through a window
into the door.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
No, I mean, no wonder these guys are all confused about the toolbar shit, man. They have no fucking idea.
Well, it's because they've never caught anyone in the act, so they don't know.
That's true. That's true. Oh yeah,
dang.
They have the
Bring in the
worst
fire.
fucking history of actually catching.
yeah. Worth
criminals.
mentioning that the cops don't actually prevent crimes. They just show up and ask you about them later, and then shrug their shoulders and say that they'll work on it.
The numbers don't lie. Scott Jones and the sheriff's department don't do anything. They just sit around and look like thumbs.
They certainly don't use fucking toolbars to open windows. I can tell you that, because one of them would have caught that at that fucking photo shoot.
Mhm.
Right.
Anyway.
All right, I'm calling it.
So anyway,
That's the show. Guys, to all the listeners who are still with us, like all 1.5 of you, are the people who fell asleep about 10 minutes ago and are still listening to this.
40% at this point, which is pretty good usually.
We love you. We want you to stay safe.
stay sane.
Stay healthy.
And stay the fuck away from me.
All right. We'll see you guys in a few days.
All right, bye everyone.